Hey everyone, I thought I might just chat with you today all about my experience, and maybe some of you will connect with that. What we offer in Unity is practical Christianity. In the practical part, we offer Sunday services with a message and with community fellowship. And then there's the classes. We offer those through Unity National School of Australia and New Zealand. Then there's books, and of course we offer Silent Unity with prayer support and other ministerial works. Services like funerals and naming ceremonies, christenings if you like, for us to be able to live a more spiritual life in a practical daily way. Of course, we're reminded of the story of Myrtle Fillmore. And it's always good to go back to that wonderful story of her going off to a talk and hearing E.B. Weeks tell her that she was born whole and in the spirit of God. And therefore, she is able to be healthy and well and healed. And then she went home and committed herself. She made a commitment to herself to do that. And so she spent several hours a day in meditation and prayer. And the first thing she did was she apologized to her whole body for the wrong thoughts, the error thinking that she'd had in the past, and moved herself through a wonderful healing experience. And of course, made her transition some 40 years after the original prognosis for the doctors had given her. And in the journey of that, her and her husband created this wonderful Unity movement that we're part of. That early story of beginning of Unity didn't start with their intention to set up a movement or a church. That was really just their own personal journey, their own spiritual journey. And Myrtle has healing. Of course, we all know that then people heard about her healing and they came to the house and she prayed with them. And, you know, the wonderful letters, if anyone hasn't read it, the book, The Healing Letters of Myrtle Fillmore, is just some wonderful writings in there that Myrtle wrote. And it's just a combination of the letters that she wrote to people who contacted her looking for prayer and support and help with their own healing. So that's the practical that we offer. However, Unity is much more than that. It's really a way of our spiritual journey, our personal spiritual journey. And I have found that often going back to the basics is a great way to engage at the next level or the next part of our journey. Recently, Julian spoke about change. He was talking for Unity Reflections of Truth, and in his wonderful talk titled, "Do I Get Change with That?" he suggested we embrace change. I see my responsibility as to embrace change and to engage with it from within. Plus, you know, I do believe that as we check on ourselves, so we are lifting the world. And hence, I have been this year with a big focus on love. So much fear last few years. The only way I can see to shift this is, like so many others around the world, is by speaking and spreading love. In Unity, we would suggest that you do that from your own inner being, from that spirit within you. Reverend Phyllis and I had been teaching, well, facilitating really, Foundations in Unity classes recently. And during that time, I came to the question, the one I posed in the email, and I asked myself, where are things up to now? Where am I up to now? So what I gained from a Sunday with Unity talk is such things as Julian's talk. Revisiting the classes and thereby rereading the books gives me the opportunity to refocus on my spiritual stuff, my own journey, what's happening with me. And so that then leads to all parts of me, because I now believe our consciousness, our spiritualness, that is generated into all of our life when we're connected to the spiritual part of ourselves first. Of course, the books that we use for foundations for the classes is 2 books, and they've been written a long time ago. Well-known books, of course. One of them is Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady, and the other one is Discover the Power Within You by Eric Butterworth. Side note, everybody, Eric Butterworth's been one of my favourite authors since I first read his books back in the 90s, when I didn't even know Unity existed, but I found his wonderful writings. The interesting part about Lessons in Truth is there's this wonderful first chapter that's in there called Bondage or Liberty, which for a period of time in the printing of this book, that particular chapter was taken out. I don't know if you all know that. And then they realized the importance of this initial chapter and they put it back into the publication. So this little quote of mine is from the 1965 version of Emily Cady's book, which is very similar to the original 1890 something book. I think 1895, something similar. It was written a long time ago, I said. And here's what she says at the beginning, in the very first chapter, called Bondage or Liberty, which, in entering upon this course of instruction, each of you should, so far as possible, lay aside, for the time being, all previous theories and beliefs. By so doing, you will be saved the trouble of trying all the way through the course to put new wine into old wineskins, from Luke 5:3. Cady goes on in that very first beginning of the book to say, every man believes himself to be in bondage to the flesh and to the things of the flesh. All suffering is the result of this belief. The history of the coming of the children of Israel out of their long bondage in Egypt is descriptive of the human mind or consciousness, growing up out of the animal or sense part of man into the spiritual part. And so in the classes, we begin looking at the journey of our inner world and our own spiritual being, and what can be available to us by traveling this journey. Again, I ask myself, where are things up to now? Well, I've been doing some work recently with some wonderful group that are teaching some classes on digital marketing, but a part of their classes and things, conversations about our own beliefs in ourselves, etc. And they mentioned a book, The Path of Least Resistance, which I hadn't read. I've had it on the shelf for a long time. I hadn't read it for a long time either. And it was gifted to me by someone back in 2013. So that's how long ago since I first read it. And in that book, in The Path of Least Resistance, he talks about this concept of possibility, very much a unity type concept. But he identifies this way of thinking that says, if our identity is who we are in the world today and who we're being, then we miss the point. Because really, we're living in a structure of whatever's around in our world that is the structure of goals and who we are and moving forward to where we want to be. And in doing that, if our identity is attached to that, then we're stuck in that oscillation, in movement of that. However, if we can move our thoughts of our identity to a higher level and connect that to the divine, which are not the words he uses in the book, but to the superconscious is what he uses, to that superconscious within us and without us. So that's the superconscious of us that connects us to the oneness that is everywhere. If we can move our identity of who we are into that space, then what happens is all possibility opens up for us. We're now connected to the oneness and the possibilities that are out there, many of which we mightn't have thought of. And so in The Path of Least Resistance, he doesn't use the word denials and affirmations, but he talks about shifting our identity, thinking about us being the divine, and then taking everything that we do that we want to create in our world from that point where we now have access to all of those possibilities. Oh, there I go with my hands again. Just a moment on the hand. You see, what happens is, for me, I kind of connect these things. And so I will think about things like all the possibilities out there, and then have an action that says, coming through me with my hands, because all those possibilities that are out there are going to come through me. And for me, when I do that, that's where my thinking goes. And I think about, I'm accessing whatever's possible in this world. Happens to me often, just so you don't get confused about me and waving my hands around, that is. So then I've also been doing some reading lately with a guy called Charles Eisenstein, very interesting man. He wrote a book called Sacred Economics, which is a whole new possibility of how we might do economics in our world from what we currently do and how we currently engage with money and material things. And his concept is the possibilities. He talks about choice and the concept of choice. And he gives this example that if we're only given one choice, then the choice becomes yes or no for that. What happens when we do that is we exclude all other possibilities. His example is, for instance, if you're going to buy this specific car, one car you've picked out, your choice becomes, yes, I'll buy the car, or no, I won't buy the car. But we all know that that's just one possibility. There are lots of possibilities, not just about cars, but about transport and how you might get around and what your requirements might really be. So he talks about the fact that if we just get our decision about that one option being presented to us, then the choice becomes yes or no about that one option. But in reality, there are possibilities. And so I've kind of put those two lots of works together and said, well, if I've shifted my identity to that within the whole superconscious of myself connected to that oneness, then any possibility can come through me. So coming back to foundations in our classes, the two books, as I mentioned, are Lessons in Truth with Emily Cady and Discover the Power Within You, Eric Butterworth. Two wonderful unity books, basics of unity. Some of the topics of the course we start with in the structures of, well, both of the books, we start talking about the structures of God and the structures of human and the threefold nature of each one. God being principle and personal. So the threefold nature of God would be divine mind, divine idea, and manifestation. Of the human, the threefold nature would be spirit, soul, and body. In consciousness, we relate to this as being our subconscious, our conscious, and our superconscious. As I was talking about, connecting our superconscious with that oneness. It's already connected, it's there. So I just want to clear up something for you before I get too much more into this. And that is, for me, as my journey over the last few years, I found that I stopped using the word God. And the reason for that was my concepts or my beliefs of what that was and what that meant were developing and changing. And I found that if I used that word a lot, I had to keep defining it for everybody and saying what I meant by that. Where if I stepped out of using that and moved into spirit, universe, higher intelligence, essence, divine love, all these other words that I could use, then I became more relating to what my definitions of God might mean for me. And I could use different ones in different examples or different situations, especially when I was wanting to connect with spirit and to be in meditation or prayer or listening. So I moved it. And so for me, it's kind of like I was explaining with waving my hands. If I'm looking for something that's a new possibility or a new idea, I might be looking to a higher intelligence for some idea that I think I haven't got the answer to that, and I'm looking for a new answer, knowing that that's going to come to me in some form and it's going to come through me. So When Phyllis was teaching a particular section in the book, and we came to that well-known statement that we use so often, and she was talking about it, had the slide up, and she said, "Be still and know that I am God." That's from Psalm 46:10. So be still and know that I am God. I changed it for the first time. I've done these classes several times. I've read these books lots, but I changed it for the first time, and I changed it to be still and know that I am spirit. And when I did that in that class recently, I tingled all over. I suddenly completely got it. I don't kind of know why it took so long or what happened in it that was different, but revisiting the basics and asking myself, where are things at now? I got this whole be still and know that I am spirit. And that really big learning of I am and that connection. Of course, the wonderful things that we cover in Foundations is the Beatitudes from Matthew 5. And we take a look at these through the eyes of Eric Butterworth. In his book, Discover the Power Within You, chapter 6, where Eric Butterworth writes so well and gives wonderful metaphysical interpretations. He just explains the Beatitudes in a wonderful, practical way, and a way that we can take in and understand in our lives. Then there's the following chapters in the book that are expanding on what this all means. Their thoughts, the law of non-resistance. Interesting, Rhonda's talking about that today in Brisbane. Prayer, sufficiency for today, the law of compensation, forgiveness, healing, and abundance. In this class, I noticed that I had so many underlines in my book, so many comments written in the book already, and yet there was still more to highlight. Julian tells a funny story about the Unity elves who pop into the book and add more lines when you're not looking at it, which is how those things you notice now as you reread it today, you didn't notice them before. Revisiting Unity basics is a great thing to do, and I recommend it. Actually, recently in a class with Reverend Kelly Osola, teaching us on writing for ministry, she agreed completely when I mentioned this idea. She said that it's good for all of us to go back regularly and do the learning and revisit the basics. Unfortunately, today I cannot do justice to this class. However, I am grateful that I went back. And I noticed in my book that I'd already written in chapter 11, which is the law of compensation, and I saw that I had written these steps. And it says, step 1, meditation. Step 2, contemplation of myself as a spiritual being. Step 3, truth unfolds in me, a knowingness. Step 4, release the hidden potential of my innermost self. And step 5, the attitudes of my being. I need to live it. We know that's principle 5, hey? So the upcoming Unity retreat, the annual retreat or the intensive teaching week, starts from the 29th of August. And I invite you to join one or all of those classes. Come with me if you like and spend the week with a focus on meditation practices. We'll be doing lots of meditation. If you cannot be at Greenmount Beach Resort in Coolangatta, then join us on Zoom. All these classes will be available on Zoom, and revisiting the basics is a really good idea that I suggest and recommend that we do often. To finish up this journey of a Sunday with Diane, asking ourselves, well, I'm asking me, where are things up to now? I wanted to pose these questions for you, these questions that Phyllis gave us at the end of our foundations class, that I thought were really a wonderful option to consider. So I'm inviting you to consider these questions this week. First one is, what do I really want to achieve from spending this time studying these teachings of Jesus? Do I really think these are attainable? What value do I place on these teachings? Can I truly put these teachings into practice in my own life? What we'd like to do now is take a moment to take some of those ideas into some meditation. So if you would all like to gently relax and get comfortable where you are, allow the experience of your physical being to completely relax. Gently closing your eyes or lowering your eyes if you're more comfortable. Allowing the eyelids to rest and relax gently. Feeling that wonderful moment of relaxation from the top of our head, gently floating down through our spine, allowing every moment as it moves down to relax that area of the body, relaxing our nervous system as we go, till we get all the way to our feet and toes, as we wriggle our toes and let them relax. And taking a beautiful deep breath. And as we breathe out, we relax. We relax our physical being, allowing ourselves this time with spirit, taking up the concept of connecting to our own spiritual super consciousness, that wonderful intelligence and the essence of love around us and within us. As we breathe in and breathe out, relaxing, we take our focus to our heart center. And from this heart center, we can send the love through our body within us, knowing that spirit is always with us, healing us, providing for us, looking after us. And as we feel that wonderful movement of love in our body, we can turn within ourselves and listen for that wonderful voice of spirit as we gently take a few minutes of silence now. as we gently come back to our own awareness, we know that the realizations that are possible, the possibilities that are there for us, will be made clear to us as we need them in this time of quiet moments with Spirit. We give thanks for the wonderful opportunity to be there and to feel that love within us. As we come back into our physical being and experience now and reconnect with those around us, opening our eyes, we are grateful for everyone around us and we give thanks today. And so it is. Let's feel